So, quite difficult to know what to read to you out of all this. I think a few people have soldiered from beginning to end of the book, but not many. And I didn't really expect that. I think it's more like sort of eyewitness history of a very major range of different topics and subjects and themes, and some of it will appeal some places and not to others. So, that's just what I tried to do in putting it all together. But I thought what I would read in deciding, a few things to read was a bit from the beginning, a bit from the end, and a bit from somewhere towards the end. And so I'm going to read a bit from the prologue, and I hope this is of interest to you. So each human life is conceived and endowed with a biological inheritance, shared from its parents and connected with its mother. This inheritance channels the nurtured growth from a single cell to a maturing embryo born as a child into the world. The child discovers, learns, lives, and copes. They experience the world and connect with it. They grow and evolve in context of family, community, and society at large. On these many levels and stages of life, the computer is now never far from their side. We are learning to live with the computer. It shares in what we sense and know and how we act. It has the potential to empower and enrich our lives, but with a catch for the unwary. Where we know our mind and keep our head, it is an invaluable resource. Where we do not, it exposes and amplifies inconsistencies in our approach and expectations. It does so without heart and come to haunt us. Our hands can become entangled and tied, and we will have tied them. So that's how I started the book, which is a sort of slightly apocalyptic, but so that's where I started off. So maybe in slightly lighter vein, I'll skip to the postscript, because I'm optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. Barack Obama wrote a book when he retired as president or whatever called The Audacity of Hope. And about the same time, the Bank of England governor, Mervyn King, retired. He looked after the Bank of England right through the currency crisis. And he was, really scarred by that. And he wrote a book called The Alchemy of Money. And he characterized the term of audacious pessimism. In other words, we shouldn't be audaciously hopeful. We should be audacious, but we should, and I'm sort of somewhere between those two perspectives, I think. So if we skip to 552, okay, so I'll read a couple of paragraphs here, okay? This is right at the end in the postscript, okay? Worlds move on and pages turn. Uncertain futures take shape and play out. A new environment and new balance arrive. New sickness, new healthcare. Care information utility will be located somewhere at the centre of illness and wellness services in their quest for coherent balance, continuity and governance. That centre will be a David Goodhart somewhere, anchored in head, hand and heart. We all share responsibility for creating the somewhere that we seek and for carrying the workload that is necessary to be carried to that end. Information utility, created without meaning, anchored somewhere and somehow, can quickly degenerate into noise and bias anywhere, anyhow. Science has learned how to use information technology to tame and keep a handle on somewhere, signal and noise. Society at large has not yet come to terms with information. It has created and unleashed a legacy of anywhere, anyhow, noise and bias that must and will somehow and in some way become more tame. We have to work to ensure that this is achieved in ways that serve healthcare well. And the final paragraph of the book. There is a lot that needs to change. Finding common ground on which to implement change may be daunting and otherworldly as a goal, but that does not make it a bad or wrong-minded goal, and it does not render it unachievable. The future can and will be different. Rigor, engagement and trust, people, environment and community, head, hand and heart, balance, continuity and governance, purpose, goal and method, leadership, governance and regulation, all these are tripods of endeavour. Careful attention to implementation is essential. We must create the future, not enclose, predict and manage it. We must make and do it, share it and own it, along with everyone else. And we should listen to and enjoy the music and the dance, keeping upright and balanced, imaginative and creative, in time, in step, trusting and together, and on common ground, of course. Do you want me to read some more, or shall I just ask for questions and discussion? Because that would please me quite a lot to have some input. What do you like?
I think I have a question.
Okay, start off.
How did you get all of that down in that period? Because I've got to be honest, I still have to go back to it. It's like a Bible of multiples. I find it quite incredible. I just don't understand how you managed to get.
Okay. So there was COVID, okay?
Yeah.
And for various reasons we had to shield a lot.
Yeah.
So this was my COVID project. It went on for 4 years, okay? And I had people like Sheriff reading and a lot of other folks reading as I went. About 8 people helped me in terms of that. And it went through 4 drafts, and it then went through peer review, and then it had an absolutely amazing copy editor, Adele at Open Book Publishers. So it was a book I sort of discovered by writing it, because I'd always known that I would either write it or it would all disappear, from me anyway. I couldn't write it now. I really couldn't write it now. And somehow it worked. And I tell you, the copy editing was, for me, it was transformational. I had some quotations, like I quoted in the early part, something from the Scientific American, which was about the motor car in about 1904, where it said this was going to be the great solution for all the social cares of the coming century, the motor car, okay? And I said there, the future's quite difficult to predict. But I didn't have the reference, and it came back from my copy editor. Blow me, she'd found it and put it in. So, having people like that, and there were numerous occasions she put me right on various things. She said, well, that's not right. This was a woman, young, just finishing her PhD at Cambridge, schooled in humanities, an expert on Norwegian archaeology, actually, writing and copy editing a book, in a field complete. It shows the kind of skill and education of people in those sorts of worlds. So I was hugely indebted to them for A, accepting it for publication, and B, putting that effort into it. So I don't really know how. I know I couldn't do it now.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you.
How many copies are downloaded?
4,200.
And which country is it most popular in?
It's equally popular in the USA and continental Europe, including England, of course. Yeah, interesting about the volume of readership in America. I don't know. I don't have any correspondence there, but
Well, that mirrors the activity on, the open-air system.
it does. Before, yeah. CKM's the same. Yeah, it's interesting because people like Eric Topol, I mean, they're quite attuned to the idea, but it's a major sort of both cultural and organisational shift in America for this stuff to come to the fore, isn't it? The whole ecosystem is balanced in different ways. But the story that various people tell about artificial intelligence in the context of permission to practice as a clinician in America now is getting quite scary. United Health and the stories of AI algorithms saying, you can't treat, and we're not going to pay for that, etc. So it's all coming home to roost quite quickly, I think, that kind of thing. You've got some thoughts about AI, haven't you, Sam?
Too many. But it is, I'm kind of, you use the giant echo chamber. You kind of raised that a bit today when you were talking. It's very worrying. I just worry for the expense, honestly.
And
Having
electricity.
it's just going to echo everything that could possibly be necessary anywhere, and people just get lots of tests. And I wrote recently about a 46-year-old man who came to see me, and with right-sided chest pain, had been going for over a year. He had 2 CT scans. I just got him, asked him to take his shirt off, and there was this tumour. And the CT scans were both reported as normal. When I looked at them, not a radiologist, I'm like, that's not normal. Both of them reported as normal. It was there a year before. And you'd seen 6, 10 doctors. I just feel this AI kind of thing is going to encourage people to believe in all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And take that human, so, from 1 metre away, you all could have told us what was wrong. Or something wrong at least.
Yeah.
With your eyes, and yet all this tests and things were done.
Sam, wasn't that piece around touching, like physical touching?
Yes. Yes.
And I think the AI won't have those human senses and those.
And trust, isn't there? There's a lot of trust with that stuff.
Was the AI on a manual reporting by a radiologist, or was it an AI?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. Probably the manual reporting.
One thing that AI is good at is pattern recognition, and that's probably one of the. I always say, make a comparison to why most of the AI tools in use nowadays and have been passed by regulatory authorities is to do with imaging data.
Yeah.
And I always think the reason for that is that as soon as they digitise the scans, they said, right, we're going to use DICOM. So DICOM has all the metadata, has all the bitmap data, and actually you could then work on that.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that for decades. And I've been using, DICOM files for 20 years. Using open source software to build 3D models, doing segmentation of bone. I've been doing that for a long, long while. And now you can do it with AI auto-segment. Actually, it does actually pick up good data. So when you're doing supervised training, where you're using clinicians to actually go, yes, that's abnormal, that isn't abnormal, you can get quite confident, but not necessarily with other forms of AI. So there's the self-learning LLMs with validated clinical data, then that becomes more difficult. And I think you've got to separate the 2 bits. And in order to get the AI, it's all about the quality of the data, isn't it? So standardized data format, and then having clinicians to then, or multiple clinicians to look at that data and say, actually, yes, that's wrong, that's right. But it's very interesting. And not to say that AI would pick it up, but it might flag it as an abnormal.
I think for me, we've got to keep generative AI, and I think we should call it Gen AI or something, because there's everything, like you've just talked about machine learning in a way, haven't you? And it's kind of completely separate science.
Yes, it
isn't
is, yeah.
So that worries me a lot, that just suddenly everything's AI, isn't it? That's all anyone talks about. It's actually lots of little bits of science.
Definitely is.
And some of it's very powerful, and some of it's powerfully designed, but who knows exactly what it's going to deliver.
So, do you mind if I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Did you have any negative or objective feedback after
What book? No, none at all.
Did you have any feedback about the mistakes of the past from anyone in the NHS?
Just commentary, but about mistakes. Not particularly, no.
It filled in blanks to me from before I was in the NHS. It really helped.
So that's what happened.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Do you think the current sort of leaders of the sort of NHS now have maybe read it, or maybe they should read it, because I think you know they want to. It seems like they want to wipe the slate clean, don't they? They want to make a fresh start, and I think this is probably a good place to start from my perspective, and I would push anyone who's in that leadership role in NHS England, or where they're going to look at this new health record system, to actually go, look, let's look at this again, because it didn't work before. Why didn't it work? What's in that book?
You need to understand that sort of history. You
Exactly.
don't want to try and cure the problems of the past. You've got to imagine a different future, but learning from the past is quite important, isn't it?
And I think most governments haven't done that for the last 20 years. They've just gone, oh, we'll do the same thing over and over again, and get it wrong again, and waste millions and trillions of pounds. Well, it's easy to put trillions on it, isn't it?
Andrew Morris's parting words to me as he left today were, "We can't leave this to the government, we need to sort this out," and then he shook my hand. Yeah.
Good man.
Might be worth sending a signed copy to the Secretary of State.
From us all.
Yes.
I don't know Wes Streeting. He might be dyslexic for all I know.
The audio copy. We need an audio copy.
An audio copy. Oh right. Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Continue on the AI discussion, because AI is of course a computer system, and all we talk about here with openEHR is about structuring data, on which then an AI can reason or guess, whatever you call it. But maybe it's a question for the clinicians, and it's a little philosophical. Probably if you practice medicine, you recognize that sometimes you have the feeling that something's off with the patient without being able to point at what's causing this feeling. And we're trying to get more data into computers and getting computers better at better analyzing the pattern. But is there any consensus or thoughts about, like, is it possible at all to put, is medicine just information, or is there something outside of the information aspect that you need to practice medicine? Does the question make sense?
Yeah.
So you're saying it might improve, and I think it will. So having an AI engine in the future, just checking the health record, everything, and giving you some ideas.
That was Eric Topple's view, wasn't it, in his book?
It's going to raise a lot of concern.
So why stop on the health record? Let's say the ER or AR becomes the norm, and there is a camera that can see everything you can see, and there is a mic that can hear everything you can hear, and it hears what you have to say. I think Hugh's question was about, is there another information that cannot be fed into an AI that a clinician somehow...
Intuition.
The gut feeling.
Yes.
But I would...
Facebook is that,
Maybe AI is, what it's doing right now is like system one kind of thinking, which is all intuition. It doesn't go into the depth of what it has, and all of AI is just like system one, immediate response. Is there another entity that's...
There's sound, isn't there? There's some AI systems where they're saying they can diagnose from your voice whether you have diabetes or asthma. So there is something there that the AI is picking up on that may indicate something, and that maybe that intuition that you're saying that clinicians build over many years. So when they're 40 years in practice, they come and hear the patient, they come put a stethoscope, they put a hand on the chest. There's a rhythm to something. And now there are AI tools that are saying, that it can do it. So
But it still affects
Maybe
the smell or the hearing. It still affects. It's not intuition.
No.
How do you have an AI palpate?
Pressure sensing.
Pressure sensing. But somebody has to press with the particular...
Build a robot. Right?
Yeah.
This is your story. You're saying they can do it. No, of course they can.
Do you want to know 6 years before you've got Parkinson's if you're going to get it? You know? I'm out of there. I'm happy to live the next 6 years quite innocently, and then until somebody can tell me there's something they can
do about it.
Yes,
that's the crucial thing, isn't it?
That's one thing, is most of this is diagnostic, so it's like, so what? So I've got the AIs telling me I'm going to, that actually is there a treatment for
you can do,
and who's going to deliver that treatment, I'm an orthopaedic surgeon. I don't think a robot's going to be able to do what or my colleagues can do end to end. You know, they talk about robots in surgery. If you look at those robots, they're not really doing very much. They're doing a very small part of what you would do. And you know, there's certain bits of it where I say, well, actually, a good surgeon with a steady hand is probably as good as a robot at the moment. You know, in my field, definitely. And there's some randomised trials looking at robotic surgery and implants. And does that affect the outcome of that patient and longevity of the implant? You know, I don't think there's going to be a much difference there, because I think, you know, a well-trained surgeon in a good training program will probably likely do a good job. You know, but yeah.
That's a good surgeon who's hard to come by.
Well, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean,
Not too
it depends really, isn't it? But yeah, I think we're potentially overrated. You know, you go through a training program, yes, you've got to pass certain levels, but you know, you get to a standard. There'll be great surgeons who said a lot of it's not to do with the operating; it's about being a good human, talking to patients,
the human
listening
side.
to them, being empathetic.
Definitely.
Actually, a lot of the stuff that I do, I probably talk about stuff with them, and decisions are really about what we do, not
And
necessarily
when.
what I've done. You see what I
Absolutely.
mean? It's that kind of shared decision making with the patient. It's having that rapport. It's about what can be achieved, what are the alternative treatments. You know, and then you make that together, and then you go forward from there. So, which is a very human thing, isn't it? It's not, you can't really do that with a robot.
It's a funny thing because they did a study on chatbots that were manned by humans versus ones by AI, and patients found the ones by AI to be more empathetic.
Yeah.
It's
true. Yeah.
so I don't know.
Is that better?
Is that?
So if you look at the Veteran Affairs Service, the top 5% of the patients really like, think are doing a great job, actually have the worst outcome, they're really bad outcomes, because they're very empathetic and they give people what they want rather than what they need.
You've got to
don't challenge people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of important, isn't it?
There's another real history in and around Daniel Wiesenbaum's book, Computer Science and Human Reason, because he created the ELISA program, which probably some of you will know, which was, 40, 50 years ago. This was just people typing in concerns. Well, there was a general question came up on the teleprinter, and then people would respond to it. And then a dialogue would ensue. And it was a very simple experiment that all he did was take what people had written, rephrase the syntax of the sentences, etc., put some question marks around it, and play it back to them. So there was nothing there other than a bit of lexical scanning and rephrasing, and he got really alarmed at the number of his colleagues who ended up, as far as they were concerned, the Turing test was completely sort of satisfied. They thought there was a human being the other side there, really. And they spent hours on this dialogue with a machine that was just echoing. And that's why I use the analogy of the echo, that a lot of this stuff can be an echo. And we've got to be, not necessarily harmful or whatever, but we've got to be really clear about where it fits alongside the wider scope of health and care practice, and how we regulate and how we run them and train for them and whatever. So it's going to be interesting.
Like the digital partner, I haven't tried it, don't know if anyone else has that. You just start having a dialogue with this virtual bot, and they just act like your partner. But I imagine they're doing all sorts of things that don't actually help you in society, particularly. I would imagine, just responding a bit like terribly empathetic.
Anyway, have some cake.
I know we've all got to get over to the dinner soon, but I'm going to ask one last question. Take a prerogative. So you talk a little bit about the future in the book. What do you want of us to carry on the work?
Oh, well, honestly, what you're doing, I think the way you're scoping the enterprise, your way of communicating it, the alliances you build. I said in the parentheses of the end, but the importance of alliances. And I explained why they were particularly crucial in our area. You're building wonderful alliances, Rachel, and your group. Everybody, yeah, no, the whole team. And that's what I would want to see, because I think out of that really good things can come. And I had this thing which I used to say to annoy people in positions of power, which was that we're in a 10-10 world, 10-10-10 world, a bit like implementation. All of these sort of catchphrases that I used to have. I said you were spending 10 times too much money achieving 10 times too slowly a tenth of what we could achieve if we had good alliance. And so, it's a 10-10-10 mission, really, that I think all of that is achievable, done the right way and in the right spirit. These are wicked problems. As soon as they are articulated, they change. And so, this isn't, that's the solution, get there. This is, we want to be in that direction and we're going to learn along the way.
Yes,
and it's a bit snakes and ladder-ish, obviously. But, sorry, do you want to say?
It's like your staircase.
Yeah.
You're building it as you go.
Yes,
You build it.
Yeah, navigation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the reality of it. It's going to stay like that. I just think that we don't really, if you think that we're halfway, as I've sort of characterised it, and Demi-Cebis is already doing 200 million protein 3D models from what Max Perutz did. What's that going to be in the world of quantum computation? I'm part of the Oxford Physics quantum computation group. I go to their meetings and things. If that begins to gel, it's a wholly different world. And all of this, we might think, and I think I would, talk to e-patient Dave a bit about this. Picking examples like that, you can pick them, but you've got to think about the whole environmental context of professions and people and how that's going to change, alongside the fact that your patient can come in with a chat GPT who's sorted out all this stuff that you've floundered away at. That's going to change relationship and professional practice, etc. And that is going to be really hard to construct. Where we are now is a many decades and eons long evolution, and it's going to carry on, but it's evolving very much faster. And the danger of it is that if we lose traction in and around what these methods are, what they actually involve, and the human context of those gets a bit lost in the mists. And unfortunately, the politicians who get blindsided by technology, they're a bit of an illustration of this. Because if they're not understanding the reality of what is there in terms of science, engineering, and so on and so forth, how can they form policy? So it's a pretty precarious journey in a way. But I think the way you're tackling it is absolutely the right way to do it.
Anyway, just put it to you, would you consider that being halfway there is actually what we should continue to be?
Another halfway.
Yeah. Another halfway.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And as soon as we think we're there, we're in trouble.
And unfortunately, that geometrical series never reaches 2.
Yeah.
I'm a mathematician.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Oh no.